The river mouth had the stillness of a snare. Davos Seaworth knew the look of honest water and treacherous water, knew shoal shimmer and hidden rock, knew the way a current might lie to a man until the keel struck and split him open. This did not look honest. It looked patient. Blackwater Bay was filled with the king's fleet from edge to edge. Long rows of lanterns trembling upon the dark like fallen stars dragged down to drown. Yet the mouth of the river ahead seemed narrower with each beat of the oars, a throat tightening around them. Behind him, men prayed to every god they had ever heard named. Ahead, King's Landing rose out of dusk and smoke, its walls striped with torchlight, its hilltops crowned in fire. Bells were ringing in the city, thin and urgent. But over the bells, Davos heard the harder sounds that mattered more. Chains on capstans shouted orders, the deep wooden groan of straining timbers. Not from their own ships, from the banks. He turned his head and spat over the rail. The spittle vanished in darkness. His son Mathos came to stand beside him, helm beneath one arm. The boy was no boy, not for years now. But a father's mind was a stubborn thing and kept its old names as stubbornly as any king kept his grievances. Green light from the city gleamed on Mathos' cheekbones. "You smell it too," Mathos said. "Pitch," Davos answered. "And something worse. There's always something worse." The Black Betha rolled under them as oars bit deep. Around them the fleet pressed forward under the command of Sir Imry Florent, all splendor and impatience. Banners streaming, horns sounding, each captain straining to be first into glory. Davos had spoken against crowding the river. He had spoken against haste. He had spoken, as he had too often spoken in the hearing of better-born men, with the blunt certainty of one who had seen too much at sea to mistake vanity for courage. Sir Imry had smiled the way a fat man smiles at a lean hound gnawing old bones. The king had listened. That was why Davos feared this all the more. Stannis never spent attention cheaply. If he had heard and still chosen this course, then necessity had ridden him harder than caution. Davos narrowed his eyes toward the banks. There, low and squat in the gathering dark, stood two round towers almost lost amid the shadows and scrub. Too low for watchtowers, too thick for storehouses. They crouched on either side of the river like a pair of clipped fists. His maimed hand curled. "Get me across to the Fury," he said. Mathos glanced toward the flagship where the crowned stag of Baratheon snapped above a forest of spears. In this press. Mathos did not argue. He never argued when the fear in Davos was this quiet. Within moments, a boat had been swung down, and they were descending the rope ladder into black water that slapped and glimmered beneath them. Oars rose and fell in a frenzy all around. Men cursed as their hull knocked against other hulls. Somewhere a horse screamed aboard a transport ship, shrill with terror. The boat reached the Fury by the grace of skill and 3 near misses. Davos went up the side like the younger man he had once been, teeth gritted, shoulders burning. At the rail, a knight in the king's colors tried to bar him until Stannis himself looked over from the quarterdeck and said, "Let him through." The king stood bareheaded in a coat of dark scale with a plain surcoat over it, black and gold beneath soot and spray. He was not handsome and never had been, but he possessed a terrible clarity. In the unsteady light, his face looked carved from old iron, gaunt and hard, with that jutting jaw which seemed fashioned less for speech than for judgment. Sir Imry Florent was beside him with a face full of offense before Davos had spoken a word. "What now, smuggler?" he said. "Have you come to tell us the river is wet?" Davos pointed with the hand that had lost its fingertips for King Stannis long before the crown. "Those towers on either bank. There's iron hidden there. I'd stake my life on it. A chain." Imry snorted. "And where learned you seacraft? In the wine sinks of Flea Bottom?" "In these waters," Davos said. "A chain raised behind us, and half the fleet dies with no foe in sword reach. Half the fleet dies if we turn in confusion," Imry snapped. "We are committed. The walls are before us. The men expect." Stannis cut across him. "Send men to the towers." Imry turned, affronted. "Your Grace, it could be nothing." Stannis did not raise his voice. He had never needed to. Then we lose a few men to certainty instead of thousands to surprise. Send them. There was an instant. A bare heartbeat in which resentment showed naked on Sir Imry's face. Then he bowed, stiff with it. As you command. Davos said, Mathos, take 50. Burn the South Tower if you can't hold it. If there is a chain, cut it or foul the winch. Mathos gave him a look he had first given as a child before climbing someplace foolish and dangerous. Half eager, half resigned, because he knew already that the order had sunk deeper than refusal could reach. I'll do it. Davos caught his arm. For one moment the roar of the fleet fell away, and he saw not a captain armored for war, but a little boy asleep against a sack of onions in the belly of a smuggler's boat, while rain drummed overhead. Then the moment went, because all tender things went, and war did not wait upon fathers. Do it quick, he said. Mathos grinned without much mirth. Quick is all the city will give us. He was gone before Davos could find another word worthy of keeping him. The boat bearing Mathos and his men vanished into a crossing maze of oars and hulls. Davos turned back toward the river mouth, looking for the answering shape that would prove him wrong. No signal came. No chain broke the surface. Only the dark, the bells, the packed forest of masts, and the low-looming city. Then someone shouted, not on the fury. Ahead, a raw, astonished cry. Men were pointing at a hulk, drifting downriver toward them. Squat and black and seemingly abandoned, its deck empty, its masts snapped. It turned slowly in the current, ungainly as a dead thing. Davos felt cold move through him faster than any winter tide. Backwater, he roared. Backwater, you fools! Some captain took up the shout. Others did not hear. Still others heard and hesitated because hesitation was the rightful god of battle and took more men than steel. The hulk bloomed green. For one impossible moment, the night itself seemed to catch fire. Not red or orange, not any true color of hearth or forge, but a savage emerald light that burst outward with a sound like the sky splitting. The river leapt. Flame raced across water as if water were oil and air were breath enough to feed a dragon. Ships nearest the hulk vanished in a flower of fire and timber. Men became shadows for the span of a blink and then screams. Heat hit Davos like a wall. The fury reared. The deck bucked under him. Somebody fell burning from the rigging and struck the planks in a shape that had once been human. Davos smelled tar, blood, pitch, cooked flesh, singed wool, and the sweet, sick reek of wildfire. All one choking wave. Arrows of green light flew upward, arced, burst against sails and bodies. He heard Sir Imry shouting something brave and useless. He heard Stannis bark for the line to hold, for boats to starboard, for the rowers to pull. Then a mast from another ship crashed down across the Fury's rail, showering the deck in sparks. On the south bank, through writhing light and smoke, Davos saw fire leap up from the low tower. Mathos, he thought wildly. Mathos got there. The tower door burst outward in an orange spray of common flames, swallowed moments later by the hellish green reflected from the river. Men ran atop the battlement like insects around a kicked nest. Something moved within the machinery there. Great timbers, a wheel, the labor of chains being forced upward in frantic haste. The water before them bulged and shuddered. Iron rose from the depths. Not cleanly. Not all at once. A black gleam surfaced across the river, dragging wreckage with it, links as thick as a man's thigh, and for a terrible instant Davos thought the trap had sprung whole despite Mathos, and despite everything. Then the south side tower belched fire again. The winch bucked. One end of the chain jerked too high while the other lagged low and crooked, lifting some ruined hulls, missing others. The great length of iron came up askew, dipped, snagged amid shattered ships, and strained. The north side capstan held. The south side anchor did not. With a cracking shriek heard even over the burning river, something tore loose. Links whipped upward. One snapped free and smashed a galley's prow to splinters. The chain slumped half-raised, canted like a crippled spear across the inferno, leaving a jagged lane close to the southern bank where smaller ships might still force passage if their captains were mad or loyal, or too terrified to do anything else. Stannis saw it at the same instant Davos did. "Through!" the king shouted. "Through, damn you all!" Take the gap. The standard-bearer hauled the crowned stag higher. Horns answered. Some captains tried to turn away from the fire, but more saw the royal banner driving toward that narrow opening between burning hulks and broken chain. And shame or obedience pulled them after. The Lyseni galleys of Salad Horsan, graceful and wicked as knives, slipped toward the gap under a storm of sparks. Behind them came cogs stuffed with men-at-arms, boats of archers, barges of horses, anything that could still move and had not yet been claimed by Green Death. Davos turned to shout for the Black Betha. He never saw what struck him. One moment the deck was under his boots and the king's banner ahead of him. The next, some shattered yardarm or half a man or both hammered into him, and the world went up in a roar of water and light. The river closed overhead. Green fire burned above him like a madman's heaven. Davos opened his mouth and swallowed the bay. His maimed hand clawed at nothing. Somewhere in the boiling dark, a man thrashed against him, or a corpse did. Davos kicked toward what passed for light, lungs bursting, ears filled with the groan of ships dying around him. He broke the surface beneath a rain of cinders. All the world had become a furnace. Men leapt from burning decks and ignited when they struck the water. Oars spun loose. A horse swam past with its mane aflame, eyes white and rolling. The fury had vanished into smoke, though the Black Stag banner still moved farther in. On another deck now, or perhaps the same one, dragged ghost-like through steam and sparks. The lane by the south bank remained open by some cruel grace. Through it, one after another, Stannis' surviving vessels forced their way upriver. The city walls answered with arrows, catapult stones, and shouts. Davos coughed Blackwater and clung to a floating spar. He craned his neck toward the south tower and saw only fire. If Mathos was there, he was beyond a father's reach now. He tried not to think of the names of his other sons, because names made ghosts too quickly. The bells in King's Landing were louder suddenly, frantic and uneven. Landing bells, he thought dimly. The king had got men ashore. All at once the night no longer looked patient. It looked hungry. From the walls, the first bloom of wildfire had looked like deliverance. Tyrion Lannister stood atop the battlements above the mud gate with the heat on his face, and the taste of alchemist's smoke on his tongue, and for a single exultant heartbeat he thought they had done it. The fire spread across the Blackwater in a ravening green sheet, devouring ship after ship. Men cheered around him, some with relief, some with the ugly joy that battle gave fools. Paladin of the alchemists clapped both hands together until the rings on his fingers flashed emerald in the infernal light. "There," the pyromancer said, voice thin with awe. "There, my lord hand. The gods have taken breath and breathed it back as flame. The gods had best not choke on it," Tyrion muttered. Joffrey Baratheon laughed beside him, all bright teeth and boy's cruelty. In gilded armor, he looked every inch the hero of some cheap tale sung badly in a wine sink. Golden, sleek, unblooded, beautiful enough that stupid men might mistake shine for worth. "Look at them burn," the boy king said. "Look, hound. See how they run?" Sandor Clegane did not look pleased. The light from the river painted his ruined face a deeper ruin, all scar and shadow and sweating flesh. The half beneath the burn shone wetly. He had his helm off. Tyrion knew why. The steel dog's head had become an oven. Fire reflected in the hound's eyes until it seemed some smaller blaze had been lit inside him. "Too much fire," Sandor said. Below them, on the river, ships cracked and folded inward. One transport vanished with such completeness that for a moment it seemed never to have existed at all. Men on the walls shouted praise for the king, praise for the hand, praise for the city. Tyrion let them. A little noise was cheaper than more wine. Then he saw the line of iron. Not where it should have been, taut and implacable from bank to bank, sealing the inferno around Stannis' fleet. It rose from the depths crookedly, tangled in wrecks, one side higher than the other, links glistening black through steam and green flame. Along the south bank, where the river met the land in a low curve of mud and reeds, the chain sagged away from its intended hold and left a narrow, murderous gap. Through that gap came the first of the enemy boats. Tyrion's brief taste of triumph went bitter on his tongue. "No," Helling frowned. "My lord? The chain." Tyrion pointed. "Look at your marvelous chain." The pyromancer squinted. His face changed. One of Stannis' smaller galleys slid through the break with oars flashing. Then another. Behind them, longboats wallowed toward shore full of men. Farther out, amid fire and wreckage, the royal stag banner still advanced like some stubborn beast that had decided flame was a thing for other creatures. Joffrey's smile faltered. "Why are they still coming?" "Because they have a king," Tyrion said. "An unfortunate advantage in war." He turned and bellowed for archers to the parapet, for more stones at the gate, for every pot of sand and water to the wall. Sir Jacelyn Bywater appeared from the smoke, gold cloak slashed and dark with blood at the sleeve. "Men are landing below the walls, my lord," Bywater said. "Hundreds already, maybe more." "Then kill them faster." Bywater gave a grim nod and was gone. Tyrion glanced at Joffrey. The boy had gone pale beneath the sheen of battle glory. Good. A wiser part of Tyrion thought. A frightened king lived longer than a foolish one. But fear rarely made Joffrey wise. More often, it made him petulant. "I want my crossbow," Joffrey said. "I'll shoot Stannis myself." "If you can find him in that," Tyrion replied. The hound gave a harsh, disgusted bark that might have been laughter if laughter had ever found a home in him. Green light rolled over the black water, and the scarred side of his face seemed to writhe. An arrow struck the Merlin 2 feet from Joffrey's head. The boy flinched so violently that one of his Kingsguard reached for him. Another scream rose from below as a burning mast toppled from the river and smashed against the quay. Men on the wall began to shift their weight, not quite edging back from the parapet, but thinking of it. That was the sound Tyrion feared most, that soft shuffle of courage loosening its grip. "Stand," he snapped at them. "You stand or you die. The fire did not win this for us. You do." Some straightened because he had named their shame before it could flower. Others did not. A thin, wounded figure came lurching up the stair with one arm clasped to his side, mail clattering, breath ragged. Lancel Lannister, fair curls gone dark with sweat and blood, his pretty face pinched to something older and meaner. He had one eye swollen nearly shut. "Your Grace," Lancel gasped to Joffrey, ignoring Tyrion entirely. "The Queen commands you back to the castle." Joffrey stiffened. "My mother commands?" "The walls are no place for a king." "They are if I choose them to be," Joffrey said, though his voice cracked on the last word. Tyrion's glance went from Lancel to the river to the boy. He saw the choice laid plain as a butcher's board. Keep Joffrey here and risk a dead king or a king seen frightened. Send him back and bleed the wall of what little royal glamour still held the city watch in line. There was no good road left, only roads less fatal than others. "Go," Tyrion said. Joffrey rounded on him. "I did not ask." "Go," Tyrion repeated, soft and deadly. "Your city needs a king alive more than it needs one watching from a wall. Take Sir Meryn and Sir Boros. Leave the hound." Sandor Clegane said. "No." Tyrion turned. "No? Not for him. Not for this." The hound's gaze slid again to the river where green fire still crawled and burst and hissed. "I'll fight men. I'll fight a pack of them. I won't fight fire." Joffrey stared as if a dog had begun speaking holy scripture. "You're my sworn shield." Sandor's mouth twisted. "And you're a cunt." The word cracked across the battlements harder than any arrow strike. For an instant, even the bells seemed to falter in the city below. Then Sandor turned, shoved past a pair of dumbstruck gold cloaks, and strode toward the stair with no more care for king or city than if he were leaving a feast grown dull. "Stop him!" Joffrey shrilled. None did. Men had watched the Hound kill for them. Men had watched him laugh at death. If even he fled the fire, then perhaps the fire was not a weapon but a judgment, and men judged by fire did not stand long. Tyrion saw the thoughts spread through the line like spilled lamp oil. "Back to your places," he roared. He was one man, and an ugly one at that. "Are you all hounds to tuck your tails because a cur has bolted? Loose? Hey, Menda." Arrows darkened the air. Some found flesh on the boats below. Some fell harmless into smoke. Still the enemy came. Ladders slammed against the walls in 3 places at once. Hooks bit stone. Men in Baratheon colors swarmed from the shore, shields over their heads, climbing through the mud under a pelting rain of shafts and rocks. And there, yes, there, the black stag itself on a cloth of gold and black, advancing through the smoke near the gatehouse. Stannis had landed. Tyrion felt it then, clean and certain as a knife laid against his throat. Wildfire had bloodied him, yes. Broken ships, burned men, but it had not broken the king. This would now be decided the old way, by the strength of men and the speed of fear. Bywater returned with blood on his helm. "The ram's coming up. We can hold the gate a little while, but not forever." Forever was never on offer. Tyrion wiped soot from one eye. "Have the clansmen ready. Open when I give the word." Bywater stared. "A sortie? If the ram has friends enough, it takes the gate. If its friends are dead, it's only a log." "None, Bametka." The commander of the gold cloaks hesitated no longer than a good man should. "As you say?" Joffrey had gone, trailing silk, steel, and panic down the stair. The wall already felt emptier for it. Tyrion watched the men watch him and knew what they saw. A dwarf, smoke-blackened, mismatched eyes stinging from tears he would later blame on the alchemists. No proper hero out of any song. A poor thing to hold a city together. Yet poor things had claws too. He drew his axe. Below, the ram boomed once against the mud gate. A deep wooden thunder that shook dust from the stones beneath his feet. "Now," Tyrion said, and the city opened its mouth to bite. Stannis did not waste breath on speeches once the ground was under his boots. The longboat ground into mud and shingle hard enough to jar men to the teeth. Before the hull had settled, he was over the side into knee-deep water blackened by silt and ash, his sword out, his cloak dragging like a wet banner behind him. A younger man might have leapt ashore to show vigor. Robert would have laughed and splashed and turned the landing into a jape. Stannis stepped down as if he were walking into a courtroom where sentence had already been decided, and he meant to hear it carried out. Arrows hissed from the walls above, black streaks in green smoke. One struck the man behind him through the throat and left him clawing at his own blood in silence. Stannis did not look back. "Shields up," he said. Ladders left, ram to the gate. "Massey, take the outer postern if you find one. Horp with me." Men moved. Men always moved for him, even when they did not love him, even when they feared him more than they admired him. Love was a feast day virtue. He had long since learned the use of harsher tools. Mud sucked at boots. Ahead loomed the city wall, high and wet and firelit, with the mud gate set within it like clenched teeth. The smell of the river Inferno rolled over the bank in waves. Tar, burned pitch, salt, flesh. The wildfire's heat kissed the back of his neck, as if the bay itself would brand him for daring survive it. He had lost ships there. Good ships. Lords and oarsmen and boys half-trained. The tally would come later. A king who counted his dead before victory was a man more fit to tend graveyards than rule. The ram came up on the shoulders of 30 men and dropped into rhythm at once. Iron-capped head knocking against the gate with a force that sent splinters spitting outward. Above, stones and barrels crashed down from the battlements. One ladder party made the wall and vanished in a churn of steel. Another reached halfway and fell together, men and ladder both, crushed under a tumbled cask. No matter. There were more ladders. There were always more men until there weren't. A scream rose from the riverbank as one of Saladhor Saan's galleys slammed broadside into the quay and turned into a bridge of broken planks and bodies. Through the gap in the half-fouled chain, more of the surviving fleet was still coming, battered but not broken. The king's standard had passed the trap. That mattered. Men saw standards longer than they saw truth. "Your Grace!" cried Sir Justin Massey, mud to his thighs. "The ladder at the turn of the walls got a hold. We can take 20 over. Take 40. They'll be cut down." Stannis fixed him with those pale, unforgiving eyes. "Then the next 40 go after. This city is mine. I will not stand outside my own walls till dawn because the defenders are earnest." Massey grinned in spite of the blood on his face. There was relief in being ordered past caution. He ran. Stannis moved toward the gate where the ram thundered on. Richard Horp was already there, helm dented, sword edge dark. The man's nickname among some of the troops was the Slayer, and Stannis mistrusted nicknames as he mistrusted any boast. But Horp killed steadily enough and asked no favor before or after. "The gate's weakening," Horp said. "Everything weakens." That was the law of wood, iron, flesh, loyalty. Enough pressure in the right place and all things yielded. Above them on the wall, men in crimson cloaks and blackened mail fought hand to hand among the crenellations. A ladder had taken root there. Another would soon. The defenders were not cowards. Stannis gave them that. Tyrion Lannister, not Joffrey, had stiffened them. A clever little monkey, the dwarf. Clever enough to make use of fire. Clever enough to keep the city watch from turning their cloaks before the first blow. Clever did not mean rightful. Clever did not hold a gate against the truth forever. One of the Queen's men, a hard-jawed knight with the fiery heart of oral lore painted on his shield, shouted that the Lord of Light had opened the river for them. Some nearby men took up the cry. Stannis silenced it with a glance. "The river opened because Sir Davos saw what better men missed," he said. "Beat the gate." He felt, rather than saw, the understanding that rippled outward from that. Stannis gave gods their due when gods gave proof. Until then, he preferred the service of men who noticed towers in the dark. The ram boomed again. A shower of boiling sand fell from above and skittered over helms and shoulders. Men shrieked as grains worked into mail and leather and skin. Stannis stepped forward where others recoiled, seized one of the slackening carriers by the shoulder, and shoved him back into place. "Lift, you craven," he said. The man lifted. Arrows rattled off the shield roof over the ram. A crossbow bolt struck Stannis' own shield and quivered there, the iron head protruding just shy of his forearm. He broke it off and kept moving. Then the gate opened. Not wide. Not yet. One leaf of it jerked inward a hand's breadth as the city suddenly chose offense over defense, and from the dark gap burst armored riders and a knot of screaming footmen with axes and spears. The sortie hit Stannis' front line like a hammer striking a wedge. "Tyrion," Horp said. He could have said nothing and Stannis would have known. That was not Joffrey's work. The movement was too quick, the choice too sharp. The first rank of Stannis' men staggered. A horseman in gilded armor slashed through them. Behind him came grim black-cloaked men from the hills, half savage and wholly mad for blood, and city guards desperate enough to seem brave. Stannis bared his teeth. "At last," he said. He drove forward to meet them. Steel rang on steel, close and intimate after the long labor of arrows and walls. The world narrowed to shield, sword, breath, mud dory. A city guardsman lunged high. Stannis caught the spear on his shield rim, stepped inside, and drove his blade into the man's mouth. Another rushed him and died with his collarbone split. Horp was at his right shoulder. Massey's men came boiling down from the wall, turned to slam into the sortie's flank. Somewhere amid the crush, Stannis caught a glimpse of the dwarf on horseback, gold of hair blackened by soot, face set in a sneer too fierce for mockery. Tyrion swung an axe two-handed and felled one of Stannis' bannermen. A brave little thing after all, if bravery could be measured without mercy. Stannis did not chase him. Kings who hunted single prey lost battles. "Hold the line," he thundered. "Gate! Gate! The ram carriers, bless their stubborn backs, had not wholly broken under the sortie. The log swung again even while men died around it. Once, twice, a third time. Hinges shrieked. Wood cracked inward. The defenders had come out to save the gate, and in doing so had left it exposed to the very men they meant to scatter. A clever little monkey indeed, Stannis thought. But clever men could be trapped by their own daring as readily as by another's. The press thickened. Torches fell in the mud and hissed out. Someone shouted that another ladder had taken the wall. Someone else shouted that more of the fleet had landed behind them. The sound of battle changed, acquiring depth, layers, a spreading confusion that belonged not to a single gate but to many breaches at once. Good. Stannis killed another horseman and stepped over the falling body. The ram hit once more. One door leaf burst inward a full yard, showing darkness within and the silver flicker of men retreating through it. He lifted his sword. "Into the city," he said, and the knight rushed to obey. Within Maegor's Holdfast, the air smelled of wax, perfume, and fear. Fear had many perfumes. Some women sweated rosewater, some lavender, some sour milk, some plain dread. Sansa Stark had become so practiced at hiding her own that she often wondered if it had sunk into her bones and scented her blood. Tonight she could not have said. The sounds from beyond the thick red stone defeated all the little courtesies by which women pretended not to hear their own terror. Bells rang. Men screamed. At intervals, the whole Holdfast seemed to shiver under a far-off impact that might have been thunder had thunder ever worn iron shoes. Queen Cersei sat among her ladies with a cup in hand and ruin in her eyes. She had put on red for the night, a deep, dark red like clotted wine, and jewels at throat and ears so bright they looked almost vulgar in the torchlight, as if adornment could bully disaster into civility. The queen had been drinking steadily. It showed not in any softness, but in a kind of sharpened cruelty, as though wine had pared away the thin veil she used by day and left bare only the steel beneath. A woman near Sansa was praying under her breath. Another had begun to weep and was trying to do it soundlessly. Cersei watched them with cool disgust. "You may cry louder," the queen said. "The men outside are making enough racket. One more wail will hardly spoil the harmony." No one answered. Sansa kept her hands folded in her lap. She had learned that stillness was sometimes the only shield a hostage owned. Outside the arrow slits, she could see flashes of green reflected against smoke. Wildfire. The word had scuttled through the castle for days, never spoken loudly, as if the alchemist's storers might hear themselves named and rise in temper. The queen had trusted it. Tyrion had trusted it. Sansa wondered if trust in such things was only another name for desperation. Cersei took another swallow and looked toward the slit windows. "If your gods are kind, little dove, Stannis dies tonight?" Sansa did not lift her head. "Yes, your grace. If he wins, he will not love you for your father." There was almost amusement in the queen's mouth now, though no mirth touched her eyes. "Nor will his soldiers if they get loose. Men do not need reasons when cities fall, only doors." One of the older women gasped. Cersei's smile thinned. "You think I should lie? Shall I speak to you of rescue and noble knights?" She leaned back in her chair. "Songs were made for halls where men have already eaten. Out there they are writing the truth in blood and shit and broken teeth. Sansa heard the words, and also the fear beneath them. Cersei was most cruel when some part of her already bled. That was almost comforting. Monsters were easier to bear when they hurt. A commotion sounded beyond the door. Mail clinked. Boots hurried. The queen's head snapped around. When the door opened, the torchlight caught the pale, pinched face of Joffrey. The king had shed his brightness. His gilded armor was spattered with mud and soot. Sweat plastered his hair to his brow. 2 Kingsguard came with him, and behind them Lancel Lannister, white as paper and limping badly. Joffrey tried to step like a man returning from battle in triumph, but the speed of his breathing betrayed him. "Mother," he said. Cersei rose in a whisper of silk. "Why are you here?" "The imp sent me back." For a moment, Sansa thought the queen might strike him. It was in her face, the fierce, humiliated fury of a woman who had placed her son upon a wall for spectacle, and now received him back like a parcel rejected in transit. But she only said, "Then you are back." "There was fire," Joffrey said, as if the city itself had committed an insolence by burning in his presence. "Yes," said Cersei. "That is generally what happens when men try to kill one another." Joffrey looked about the hall at the clustered women, at Sansa, at the wine, at the door, everywhere but long enough at any one thing to master it. "I should have stayed." The lie of it was plain enough that even the ladies lowered their eyes to hide whatever truth might show there. Cersei crossed to him and laid a hand upon his cheek. Tenderness in her always looked like possession. "You are where you ought to be," she said. "Your uncle can play at heroics. Leave him his scraps." Somewhere outside, nearer now, men shouted all at once. The queen's fingers tightened against Joffrey's skin. She released him and turned away before anyone could see fear land cleanly on her face. "Sir Ilyn," she said. He had been standing in the shadows all along, which was somehow worse than if he had arrived at her call. Ilyn Payne stepped forward soundlessly, long sword on his shoulder, gaunt face blank as bone. Sansa's skin crawled. Payne's silence was never peace. It was a mutilation made useful. Cersei met his eyes with the composure of someone placing one knife beside another. "Stay near." He inclined his head. The queen drank again. "All of you, keep close. If the walls fail, no one wanders. No one screams. If you cannot master yourselves, I shall have someone master you." A serving girl dropped a cup at that, and the crack of pottery on stone rang absurdly loud. The girl blanched. Cersei only laughed once, short and empty. Sansa could not stay in that room a moment longer. The torchlight pressed too near. The queen's calm was more suffocating than panic would have been. She bowed her head and asked if she might go to the sept and pray. Cersei waved a languid hand. "Pray to whichever face is attending tonight." The corridor beyond was darker, cooler, and full of hurried feet. Sansa went not to the sept at first, but to her chamber, because prayer had become difficult in the same place where queens spoke of rape as casually as weather. She had just shut the door when a hand slammed it back inward, and Sandor Clegane filled the opening like a wound in the shape of a man. He had no helm, no cloak, and too much blood on him to guess which was his. His ruined face gleamed wet in the candlelight. He smelled of smoke, wine, and terror barely mastered. "Little bird," he said. The name should have sounded mocking. Tonight it sounded almost lost. Sansa backed away from him. "What do you want?" He shut the door with his heel. A song. She thought at first he meant to make sport of her. Then she saw his hands. One held a dagger, yes, but the other trembled. Outside, the battle pounded faintly through stone. Inside, the hound stood with fire in his eyes and fear of fire under his skin. And for the first time she understood that all his savagery had not made him immune to anything. It had only made him lonely inside it. "They're burning," he said thickly. "Rivers all green. Men screaming. Fuck that. Fuck them all." His gaze cut toward the candle and away again as if even that small flame accused him. "Come with me," he said suddenly. "I can get you out. Now. This moment. Out." The word flashed through her like cold water. But out with him meant night, battle, streets full of dying men, and beyond them a world she did not know how to cross. Out was freedom, perhaps. Out was also teeth. Sansa could not move. Something in Sandor's face curdled. Not quite anger, not quite grief. Then sing. So she did. Her voice shook on the first note and steadied on the second. She sang softly, not any court song of knights and maidens, but a hymn from childhood. A plea for mercy shaped by women long dead who had known enough of fear to leave music for it behind. The candle fluttered. Sandor listened without mockery. When she finished, He stood still another moment, breathing hard. Then he lowered the dagger. "You are a stupid little bird," he said, and the words were almost gentle. He turned and left. His boots faded down the corridor towards some future that had no place for songs. Sansa stood alone with her own voice still trembling in the room. When she returned to the Queen's Hall, the sounds from beyond the keep had changed. The battle was no longer a distant battering against the world. It was inside it now, spreading closer in bursts of steel and shouting. Men were fighting in the city. She knew it, with the certainty one knows a storm by pressure before rain. Cersei knew it too. The wine cup in her hand was full again, but she was no longer drinking. She had one hand hidden in the folds of her gown. Sansa wondered if she held a knife there, or poison, or perhaps only the shape of her own fear. The Queen looked at the door and then at Joffrey, and for the first time Sansa saw that Cersei's love could not protect even what it loved most. It could only clutch and threaten and refuse to yield. The Holdfast shook beneath a nearer blow. No one in the room spoke after that. They only listened while the city decided whose mother it belonged to. The gate vomited men into darkness, and Tyrion rode with them because there was nothing else left to do. He was not made for horseback charges. He knew it. His legs were too short, his body too ill-fitted, his balance hard-won and easy lost. Yet battle had a way of making mockery irrelevant. The pony beneath him, damn the beast for finding this the night to prove courage, lunged through the half-open mud gate and into a world of churned mud, broken shafts, shouting men, and greenlit smoke. The clansmen came with him howling, savage shadows from the hills with moon-painted shields and teeth bared under tangled beards. Gold cloaks poured around them in yellow and black, some brave, some merely too frightened to retreat in good order. Sir Mandon Moore rode near, white armor gone gray with soot, face as smooth and empty as a marble tomb. Podrick Payne struggled somewhere to Tyrion's rear, scarcely more than a child under his borrowed steel, but still there, still following. Ahead, Stannis' line had just enough disorder in it to tempt hope. "Drive them back," Tyrion shouted. "For the city." He swung his axe and felt it bite through leather and into collarbone. The force of it jarred his shoulder. Hot blood slicked the haft. A spear glanced off his helm. His pony slammed shoulder first into a man with a fiery heart painted on his breast and sent him spinning under trampling feet. For an exhilarating few moments, the sortie worked exactly as he had intended. They hit the ram carriers. They smashed apart the men guarding the shattered gate. They drove a wedge into Stannis' foremost ranks and widened it with steel. The clansmen were magnificent in close slaughter. Shagga, son of Dolph, or perhaps it was one of the others, battle-blurred names into blood, hauled a knight from the saddle and took his head in 2 blows. Men fell screaming. The ram tipped sideways. A cry went up from the wall as defenders saw the enemy checked. Tyrion spurred toward the gap, axe rising and falling, laughter in his throat like madness. Then the weight of numbers closed around them. The wildfire had not done enough. Too many ships had landed. Too many men had come through the break in the chain and over the quay and up the mud. What had looked at first like the vanguard proved only the first wave. Stannis' bannermen flooded left and right, their shield wall bending instead of breaking. Horsemen crashing in from the flank where another gate or ladder or postern had failed farther down the wall. Tyrion saw Stannis then, not 20 yards away, on foot and black with smoke, moving through the battle with such ugly purpose that even his enemies gave ground before they realized they were doing it. He had no grace and no grandeur. He fought like an executioner hewing through the line to reach the block. Tyrion hated him on sight for that calm. "Back them!" he shouted. "Back them, damn you!" He might as well have shouted at the sea. A man lunged at him with a mace. Tyrion ducked, felt the wind of it over his head, and buried his axe in the man's neck. His pony slipped in mud, recovered, lunged on. All around him, the sword had lost shape. It was no longer a sharp blade. It had become a knot, and knots strangled. He looked for Bywater and saw only a crushed gold cloak pinned under 2 bodies. He looked for the hound out of old habit, and remembered anew that Sandor had fled. He looked for Joffrey and blessed the gods or chance or Cersei's interfering vanity that the boy was safe behind stone. One dead king tonight was enough to end kingdoms. A horse went down to his right screaming, and Sir Mandon Moore appeared through the press like a pale ghost, visor up, eyes flat. "My Lord Hand," Mandon said. There was something wrong in his voice. Not fear, not haste. Nothing, in fact. No more feeling than if he had been commenting upon rain. Tyrion turned just enough to answer and saw the sword coming not at an enemy but at his own face. He moved by luck, not wit. The blade missed his eye, and instead tore across cheek, nose, and mouth in a burst of white agony so bright the whole battle vanished into it. He tasted iron and salt and something cartilaginous. His scream came out wet and broken. Mandon came again. Why? Flashed through Tyrion's mind with insane clarity even as he fumbled for balance. Cersei? Joffrey? Some deeper treachery? There was no time to know. Mandon's horse crowded close. The Kingsguard's sword lifted for the finishing stroke. A spear punched out from behind Tyrion's saddle. Podrick Payne drove it into Sir Mandon's neck at the seam of gorget and mail. Not deep enough to kill at once, not by the look of it, but deep enough to shock. Mandon reeled. His horse reared. The Kingsguard toppled backward into the crush of men and mud and vanished beneath hooves. Tyrion clutched at his ruined face and almost fell after him. "Back, my lord!" Podrick was shouting. "Back!" Back where? The city behind them was half open. The gate they had ridden from now gaped wider with every heartbeat as Stannis' men forced the broken leaves apart. A roaring tide poured through behind the sortie, not halted now, but angered by resistance. The clansmen still fought, but they were fighting to live, not to win. One of them seized Tyrion's bridle and hauled the pony around. A spear drove into the beast's flank. The animal shrieked and bucked. Tyrion lost the world again. Up, down, pain, smoke, mud, and hit the ground hard enough to drive what breath remained from him. Boots thundered past his head. He rolled by reflex and saw the black stag banner inside the gate. Inside. That was the moment King's Landing was lost. Not when the wildfire trap failed. Not when the hound fled. Not when Joffrey ran to his mother or when Cersei reached for wine with a shaking hand. The city was lost when the enemy's banner passed under its own gate and found earth within to stand upon. Tyrion tried to rise. Pain flared so fierce that it seemed his face might slide from his skull entirely. Through the red haze he saw Podrick kneeling beside him, small and terrified and trying very hard not to be. "My lord," Podrick said, "can you stand?" "No," Tyrion slurred, which came out a ruin of sounds. "Good of you to ask." Another man loomed. Clansman or guardsman, Tyrion could not tell. Together they got him half upright and half dragged him toward the relative shelter of the gatehouse wall while battle swirled past. Stannis' men were already spilling into the streets beyond, shields up, ranks reforming even as stragglers from the sortie died around them. That discipline frightened Tyrion more than any amount of bloodlust could have done. An army that took a city in order was an army that meant to keep it. Overhead, somewhere above the smoke, bells clamored as if noise alone might roll time backward. Tyrion coughed blood and spit teeth. One was not his, he hoped. Another probably was. "Take me inside," he tried to say. Podrick nodded wildly as if he had understood every word. He had the blank, astonished courage of someone too young to know how much he ought to run. Tyrion might have loved him in that instant if love had not required breath. They made it to the mouth of an alley by inches and accidents. Behind them, the gate roared with men. Ahead, the city had begun to scream. Tyrion let darkness have him because he no longer had strength to refuse. King's Landing did what cities always did when their walls failed. It lost its shape. Streets designed for trade became channels for flight. Markets became stampedes. Doors slammed. Shutters splintered. Dogs barked themselves hoarse. Bells rang from septs and towers without order or agreement, so that the city's voice became one long metallic panic rolling over the roofs. Stannis entered through the broken mud gate at the head of men too exhausted to cheer. That suited him. Triumph was a disorderly emotion, and he had no appetite for disorder. His boots struck stone slick with rainwater, blood, and mud tracked in from the riverbank. Around him came shieldmen, archers, pikemen, knights with lances shortened for street work, captains hoarse from command. They smelled of salt, steel, and smoke. The first houses nearest the gate had already been broken open, one by Stannis' own men, one by the city's, and perhaps no man living could have said which outrage had preceded the other. A woman shrieked from within one darkened doorway. A soldier stumbled out with a cloth bundle under one arm, and a chain of silver cups looped from his belt. Stannis pointed. "Hang him." The man dropped the bundle and fell to his knees at once. "Your Grace, I only meant—" "Hang him," Stannis said again. Richard Horp did it with efficient contempt. They found a cord from a ruined awning, slung it over a lantern post, and sent the looter kicking above the cobbles while the woman within the house sobbed so hard she could not seem to stop. Men watched. A few looked sullen. More looked startled. All understood. Stannis turned his gaze on them one by one. "Any man who breaks rank, steals, or touches a woman without leave dies," he said. "Not tomorrow. Not when I am less busy. Here." No one mistook his meaning for rhetoric. Rhetoric belonged to Renly, and Renly lay in his grave. The line moved on. Here and there, resistance flared. A knot of gold cloaks tried to hold a crossing and were cut apart in 3 breaths. A knight in crimson and gold spurred from a side lane with 2 retainers and died with a spear through his horse. Archers on a roof loosed down into the column until Stannis' men fired the shutters beneath them and drove them leaping into the street. But the city was not truly fighting now. It was breaking into pieces, each piece suddenly responsible for its own survival. Stannis had no time for every piece. "Take the square," he told Justin Massey at the fish market. "Barricade that lane. Anyone wearing lion colors who lays down arms gets quarter. Anyone who doesn't, don't waste rope." Massey saluted with his sword. "And the sept, your grace?" some of the Queen's men are saying. "I know what they are saying." Stannis' mouth hardened. "They are saying more than I wish to hear. No burnings. No shrines touched. No septons dragged out for sport. Not tonight. Now He had seen already the hungry glances some of the fiercer converts cast toward the carved doors of the city's septs. Let them think what they would of false gods later. Tonight he needed a city held, not a city inflamed anew from cellar to steeple. A boy ran from an alley, barefoot and crying, collided with one of the king's shieldmen, and froze at the sight of spear points. The soldier looked to Stannis. Stannis looked at the child, all skinny limbs and terror. "Home," he said. The boy bolted as if whipped. Such moments did not soften him. They only clarified the labor ahead. Kings were made to master the consequences of other men's lusts and vanities. Robert had feasted. Aerys had burned. Joffrey had played at cruelty like a boy poking beetles with a pin. Now the bill had come due, as bills always did. They passed a wine shop with its door smashed inward. 2 men were dragging casks into the street while another hacked at the seal of a storeroom door. City hands these, not Stannis. Flea-bottom breeding. Horp moved to dispatch them, but before he could, a rush of common folk from nearby lanes fell upon the thieves with clubs, hooks, stones, and bare fists. Stannis watched them vanish under the same city they had tried to profit from. "The city polices itself when it still fears the morrow," he said. Horp gave a grim snort. "Better than some lords do." Smoke rolled low over Cobbler Square. On one roof, men were hauling down the Red Lion of House Lannister, while below, from another balcony, some frightened hand had already thrown up a white sheet in surrender. A dead horse blocked part of the street, belly split open, steam rising from it in the cool night air. Beyond, on higher ground, the Red Keep loomed black against a sky streaked by flame. There lay the heart. Until the keep yielded, the city was only half taken. Reports came to him in fragments as captains rode or ran to the column. Another section of wall had been won near the river. The quay secured. The gatehouse at the King's Gate still contested. Bronn the Sellsword nowhere to be found. The dwarf last seen alive and bleeding. Joffrey withdrawn to Maegor's Holdfast. Cersei with him. Pycelle unaccounted for. Varys unseen, which in itself was a form of news. And Davos? No word of Davos. No word of Mathos or the men sent to the chain tower. Stannis kept his face still. In war, absence had a meaning all its own, and kings could not stop for every private ache without unmaking their own use. At the foot of Aegon's high hill, a body of gold cloaks barred the way to the Red Keep's outer gates. They had drawn up behind overturned carts and a hacked-down awning frame, perhaps hoping the choke of the street would slow the king's men long enough for some miracle from outside the city. Their captain wore a gilded breastplate and a feverish expression. "In the king's name!" he shouted. "I am the king," Stannis said. The answer struck harder than a volley. Men on the barricade glanced at one another. The captain hesitated, and in that hesitation Stannis saw the whole rotten architecture of Lannister rule. It had not been loyalty holding these men so much as proximity. Joffrey within the walls, Cersei within the walls. Gold cloaks paid by Lannister coin. Fear of punishment, habit, spectacle. Once a rightful claimant stood before them with victory already licking at the city's edges. Habit began to tremble. "Lay down your arms," Stannis said. "Serve the realm or die for an incest spawn. Choose now." The captain's face went white. Behind him, one of his men lowered his spear. Another did the same. The captain wheeled, cursed them, turned back towards Stannis, and discovered 3 points at his ribs from his own line. He looked down in disbelief, then up, as if shocked to find mutiny had a human shape so ordinary. He died without grandeur. The barricade came apart. Some gold cloaks dropped swords and knelt. Others simply stepped back and let the column through. Stannis rode on past them without triumph. He had always preferred the obedience of fear to the affection of fools, yet treachery retained a taste in the mouth no king should ever learn to enjoy. These men had betrayed one master tonight. If pressed rightly, they might betray another. So be it. A king made use of what the day lay before him. The outer bailey of the Red Keep stood ahead, torchlit and grim. Above its walls, the windows of Maegor's Holdfast shone like trapped embers. Somewhere inside those stones, a boy who had worn his brother's crown in mockery awaited the judgment of the man whose place he had stolen. Stannis dismounted. "No rams," he said. "If there is a gate left to open, I want it opened from within." He looked up at the dark red walls and thought, not of glory but of locksmiths. The Red Keep did not fall to force. It fell the way castles often did in truth and songs never admitted, by exhaustion, fear, and one open door. Some among the garrison were Lannister men. Some had been kingsmen in Robert's day and bent with the wind that followed. Some were gold cloaks inside the walls because all city walls leaked their guards into whatever crack offered pay. Every one of them had heard by now that the mud gate was lost, the streets in enemy hands, the river taken, the city turning. Every one of them had begun to understand that a dead stand for Joffrey offered less than a live surrender to Stannis. When Justin Massey called terms beneath the outer gate, arrows answered first. Then silence. Then the thud of bolts withdrawn on the far side. After that, the wicket creaked open to a crack through which one pale, trembling face appeared and asked in a voice scarcely above a whisper whether quarter extended to all who yielded at once. "It extends to men who do not waste my time," Stannis said. The gate opened wider. Not all the keep yielded. Enough did. By the time Stannis crossed the outer bailey, resistance had shrunk inward to pockets. A few stubborn archers on a gallery, some household knights around the inner bridge, and the knot of men who still believed the name Lannister could keep steel from their throats if they only repeated it loudly enough. Richard Horp cut down the first of them on the steps. Massey took the drawbridge with a rush. A spear glanced off the stone beside Stannis' head and left a shower of chips in his hair. He climbed the rest of the way on foot. Inside, the halls smelled of rushlights, wine, and panic. Servants flattened themselves against the walls. A maester dropped a box of leeches and ran. Somewhere doors slammed in quick succession as the castle's lesser creatures fled deeper into cracks. Varys had flown, Stannis thought at once. A spider knew the first shiver of a web disturbed. He sent men left and right with curt orders. Secure the armory. Take the towers. Find the queen. Find the boy. Hurt no woman under pain of death. Post guards at the kitchens, at the postern, at the king's bedchamber. The keep had 100 throats and 1,000 hiding holes. Everyone must be mastered before dawn. In Maegor's Holdfast, Sansa Stark heard the sounds drawing closer as one hears a tide rise in darkness. Not by seeing it, but by everything else becoming suddenly its instrument. The shouted commands in the outer ward had changed timbre. They no longer belonged to men defending stone. They belonged to men claiming it. She stood with the other women in a chamber that had grown stifling despite the cold seeping from the walls. Some clutched prayer beads. One vomited neatly into a tapestry fold because she had nowhere else to do it. Queen Cersei stood near the hearth, one hand still hidden in the red silk of her gown. Joffrey paced. "If they reach this hall," he said, "Sir Meryn will kill them." Sir Meryn Trant stood not far from him with a face that revealed nothing. Sir Boros Blount, on the other hand, had begun to sweat through his surcoat so thoroughly he seemed half-melted. "They have reached half the castle already," Cersei said. "I should have stayed on the wall." "Yes," said Cersei. "You should have been born with your father's courage as well, but here we are." The slap of that silence rang louder than any spoken rebuke. Joffrey flushed, more with humiliation than shame. His hand went to his sword hilt and stayed there, because even he knew some lines could not be crossed with his mother while the world was ending. A crash sounded from beyond the chamber doors. Men shouted. Steel scraped. One woman screamed. Cyrillin Payne shifted his sword from shoulder to hand. Cersei's hidden hand came out at last. In it was a small crystal vial. Sansa saw it because she was looking where no one else wanted to look. The vial held something dark and clear all at once, like a drop of night trapped in glass. Poison, she knew instantly. Not for enemies, for captives. The realization made her colder than any winter wind. Another crash. The chamber doors shuddered inward on their hinges. Joffrey backed up a step. Only one, but Sansa saw it. The first man through was not some monstrous giant out of nursery terrors, only a hard-faced knight in blackened mail with the crowned stag on his surcoat. More followed. One fell with an arrow through the neck and drowned on his own blood at the threshold. Another kicked the door fully wide and surged into the room. Women screamed properly then. Sir Meryn met the rush with drawn sword. Sir Boros hung back a moment too long, then struck because there was nothing else left to hide behind. Steel rang in the Queen's hall. Sansa stumbled with the others toward the wall, skirts tangling underfoot. Someone seized her arm and then released it at once when they recognized her for noble or hostage, or merely too well dressed to bother with in that instant. Joffrey shouted for his guards. Cersei had gone very still, the vial clenched in her fist so tightly her knuckles blanched. Then Stannis entered. No herald named him. None was needed. He came through the wreck of the doorway with two swords at his side, smoke in the folds of his cloak, and battle on his face like a hard-earned right. He looked older than Sansa remembered from court. Leaner somehow, as if every slight and denial of the years had pared away all but the essential man. His eyes found Joffrey first and fixed. The room changed around that gaze. Men were still fighting at the edges of it, but the center had already shifted. Joffrey might have worn a crown if he had thought to bring one. Stannis wore certainty, and certainty was heavier. "There he is," Stannis said. Joffrey's mouth opened. Whatever royal wrath he had meant to hurl out of it died there. He had perhaps never before looked at a man who did not fear him in the least. "This is my castle," Joffrey managed. "No." Stannis took one step farther into the room. "Your mother's lover built your lie. My brother fed it. You sat in it because children sit where fools place them. None of that makes it yours." "Nani, Sha." Cersei moved then, swift as any striking snake, the crystal vial to her lips. She never drank. One of Stannis' men, Horp or Massey, Sansa never knew which, caught her wrist in an iron grip and smashed it against the stone column beside her. The vial shattered. Black liquid splashed over silk and rock. Cersei gave a sound more animal than regal and tried to claw for the shards, but another soldier pinned her arms behind her. For one bare instant, naked hatred blazed on her face, undimmed by fear, and Sansa thought that if fire had human eyes, it might look like that. Joffrey shouted, "Unhand her!" No one listened. Two men seized him at once. He fought worse than a cat in a sack, all panic and bright flailing fury. His sword came half out before a mailed fist struck him across the mouth. Blood sprang bright on his lip. "Careful," Stannis said, and the room obeyed him with a speed Joffrey had never commanded from anyone brave. Sansa saw the word do its work. Not mercy. Not gentleness. Order. Ser Meryn went down under 3 blades. Ser Boros dropped his sword and tried to hide behind a queen's chair, which left him there on his knees, sobbing with relief when nobody bothered killing him at once. Ser Ilyn Payne stood a moment longer, pale and silent and dreadful, then slowly lowered his greatsword when he understood that silence would not save Cersei now, and noise had never been his art. Joffrey had gone ashy. He looked younger than ever before. Stripped of distance and pageantry, he was only a beautiful boy with too much malice and too little courage. Stannis looked at him as if taking the measure of a badly forged blade. His gaze shifted then briefly, and found Sansa. For a heartbeat she thought she might faint. This was another king, another jailer, another man with power enough to decide what shape her next sorrow would take. Yet when he looked at her, what she saw there was neither hunger nor idle contempt. It was assessment, then a flicker of recognition so faint she wondered if she had imagined it. Lord Eddard Stark had once served beside Robert Baratheon and Stannis both. Perhaps some part of that old court still lived in memory. "This one is not to be touched," Stannis said. He did not ask her name. He knew it. A soldier bowed at once. "As you command, Your Grace." "Your Grace." The title settled over the hall like a verdict. Cersei heard it too. She straightened as much as the hands on her arms allowed and said in a voice gone hoarse with fury, "You'll never keep this city." Stannis regarded her. "Perhaps, but I have taken it." He turned from her then, which was a greater insult than any curse. Men dragged Joffrey away, struggling. Cersei was taken after him, red silk stained dark where poison had splashed and glass had cut her hand. The women of the court huddled and wept and stared. Sansa stood among them with her heart beating so hard she thought it might shake her to pieces. Stannis walked on through the broken hall toward the inner chambers and the throne beyond. And as he passed the great doors, he did not look like a man entering triumph. He looked like a man entering duty. By dawn, the Iron Throne had a new master, and the city knew it. The throne room of the Red Keep was full of smoke, whispers, and men too tired to trust their own survival. Torches guttered low in their sconces as gray morning began to gather beyond the high windows. The long hall that had so often been a theater for vanity, Robert's laughter, Cersei's glittering malice, Joffrey's petty cruelties, petitioners kneeling to false power and leaving with flatter pockets, had become something harsher and truer. Blood had dried on the rushes in 3 places. The lion banners were down. In their place hung the crowned stag. Stannis climbed the steps without ceremony. No one cried acclaim when he sat. No one dared. The Iron Throne itself provided the only proper acknowledgement. One jagged blade bit through his glove and drew a thin, bright line across his palm as he settled into it. He glanced at the blood, then closed his hand around the armrest and ignored the sting. The chair cut those who forgot what it was. Better that than some cushioned seat built for flatter men and softer lies. Below him stood the remnants of a court. Grand Maester Pycelle had been found in a side chamber, half-dressed and wholly terrified. His beard trembled when he bowed. A handful of frightened household knights stood under guard. Some lesser lords of the Crownlands, who had not fled the city swiftly enough, stared at the floor as if eye contact itself might be construed as treason to one side or the other. A cluster of servants and scribes waited at the edges, uncertain which commands now held them. Varys was absent. Tyrion Lannister, Stannis had been told, lived but was grievously wounded and not yet found fully to his senses. Bronn vanished. Sandor Clegane vanished. Littlefinger absent from the city. It seemed that rats and foxes alike knew when the trap had changed hands. Joffrey was brought in chains. He still had blood at the corner of his mouth where he had been struck in the Queen's Hall. Someone had tried to wash his face, but haste and rough handling had only smeared soot into the gold of his beauty. He wore no crown. The lack of it transformed him more than the shackles did. Without gold and distance, he was shockingly small. Cersei came behind him under guard. Her gown changed, but not her expression. Her eyes had not dimmed. That, Stannis noted, was something like courage, though badly spent. One hand had been bound where the glass had cut her. She held it against her breast as if even wounded pride deserved to be displayed like a jewel. Pycelle attempted to sink to both knees and nearly toppled sideways. "Your Grace," he quavered. "At last," Stannis said, "we agree on a title." A tiny shiver ran through the hall. Some looked relieved, some more frightened than before. Kings who jested made courtiers bold. Kings who did not left them nowhere to stand but truth. Stannis gestured to a scribe. "Right. To every lord sworn to the Iron Throne and every castellan holding in the Crown lands, the city is taken and Stannis of House Baratheon sits the throne by right of birth and law. They are commanded to come swear fealty or answer for rebellion." The scribe bent over parchment at once. "Write further to Dragonstone," Stannis said. "The harbor must be secured, the wounded tended, the dead counted. Send word to the Queen that the city is mine." He did not say to Melisandre. The Red Woman had remained on Dragonstone when he sailed, against the counsel of some and in obedience to necessity or pride, or perhaps both. He did not think of her now. There would be time later for gods and fires and prophecies. A city first, a realm afterward. He looked down at Joffrey. The boy met his gaze for 2 heartbeats, no more. In them Stannis saw hatred, confusion, and a child still living hope that some adult somewhere would yet step between him and consequence. Tywin, perhaps. Cersei, certainly. The dead Robert, by some miracle of absolution. But Stannis had no use for miracles. "What is your name?" he asked. Joffrey blinked. "You know my name. I know the one you were given in fraud. I ask for the true one, Tar." A flush rose up Joffrey's neck. Joffrey Baratheon. Cersei inhaled sharply. Pycelle's eyes squeezed shut. The hall itself seemed to draw in. Stannis' voice did not rise. "No." The single word struck harder than a shout. "You are the issue of incest between Cersei of House Lannister and Sir Jaime Lannister, called of the Kingsguard. The lawful son of Robert Baratheon could not resemble him in nothing, while resembling your mother's twin in all things save sex and years. Jon Arryn died for seeking that truth. Eddard Stark died for naming it. I name it again before this court, and before the city." "Nah, Tiny." Cersei laughed then, a raw, bright peal of contempt. "On whose proof? The dead?" "On the proof of eyes," Stannis said. A faculty denied to many here for too long. He let the insult settle where it pleased. In Pycelle it landed as shame. In some of the gathered lords as relief, because a bold lie named at last became something they no longer had to pretend not to see. In Cersei it changed nothing. Hatred well kept did not curdle with time. It distilled. "You speak treason against a king," Joffrey said, but the words sounded learned, not believed. "I speak sentence against a usurper." Stannis turned to one of his captains. "Put him in the black cells. He is to be kept alive, fed, guarded, and shown no courtesy that obscures his condition. The realm will know who I have taken." Dai. Cersei stepped forward against the restraining hands. "You think Tywin will suffer this?" At that name, several eyes in the hall flicked fearfully toward the windows. toward the roads beyond the city, toward the idea of an army not yet spent. Stannis saw the movement and despised it. Lord Tywin may do as he pleases, he said. He no longer does it here. He looked to Pycelle. Where is Tommen? The old man swallowed. At Rosby, your grace. Sent away for safety before the battle. No. And Myrcella? In Dorne. Then they too will hear my claim soon enough. Stannis leaned back a fraction, feeling the blades under him. Until then, they remain what they are. Bastards born of incest do not become princes because the realm is tired. Cersei spat at the foot of the steps. The goblet fell short. Stannis' lip curled, not in anger but distaste. Take her to a chamber under guard. 2 women attendants. No men alone with her. Search her for poison. At that, for the first time, something like surprise moved across Cersei's face. Perhaps she had expected insult. Perhaps violation. Perhaps a king more eager to take revenge on a woman than to display mastery over himself. Stannis gave her none of that satisfaction. She said with bitter wonder, "You would cage me like some dangerous animal." "You mistake me," Stannis answered. "Animals kill by nature, you by choice." When she was led away, the room breathed easier and colder. Joffrey followed under guard, protesting at first, then threatening, then begging in a voice that made some in the hall look away. Stannis did not. A boy's pleading was a sadder thing than a man's, but law did not grow softer for youth. Once they had gone, he called for reports until the dawn strengthened. Wounded by the hundreds. The harbor still burning in places, but controllable. Street fighting tapering. The barracks secured. The Great Sept unmolested. Several granaries intact. Good. Good. The city could eat. A starving capital turned rebellion into weather. A guard captain entered to say Lady Sansa Stark had been placed under honorable protection in chambers formerly occupied by one of the Queen's cousins. Stannis nodded once. "No visitors without my leave." He said nothing more, but in his mind rose the image of Eddard Stark in the council chamber years before. Grave and honest and entirely too decent for the nest of knives that had surrounded him. Ned had chosen Robert over him. Ned had confessed for his daughters when he should have held to truth, and died clean. Men were mixed creatures. Yet his daughter would not pay tonight for what her father had or had not done. Another captain came with a bloody bandage at his temple. "Your Grace, word from the outer roads may be coming soon. Riders say torches are seen west and south. A great many." "Nay." "Tywin," said Horp. "Or the Tyrells," said Massey. "Or both," Stannis said. "Good. Let them find the gates closed." He rose then, because a king seated too soon risked making victory seem settled when battle still had claws. Blood from the cut in his palm had dried tacky inside the glove. "Open the ravenry," he commanded. "I want the realm woken to this day." Outside, the city bells were beginning at last to fall silent, one by one, as if exhaustion had climbed their ropes and stilled them by hand. Lord Tywin Lannister saw the city first by its smoke. Dawn had not yet burned clear when the great host coming up from the south and west reached the last rise from which King's Landing could be properly viewed. Men had marched all night, boots sunk in dust and damp, horses lathered, banners limp with weariness. Lords who preferred war discussed at a table found themselves confronted by its oldest insult, arriving almost in time. Smoke climbed from Blackwater Bay and from pockets within the city where battle had set its random teeth. But the walls still stood. That, for one small hopeful instant, suggested uncertainty enough to work upon. Then the wind shifted. The lion was gone from the mudgate. In its place flew the crowned stag. Tywin reined in without drama. He was too proud a man to display shock for the comfort of those who lived off reading it in others. Yet every captain near enough to see his face understood the truth all the same. The mouth tightened. The eyes narrowed a degree more. Rage in Tywin Lannister did not blaze. It calcified. Mace Tyrell drew up beside him in a clatter of rich armor and heavy breathing. The Lord of Highgarden had begun this ride swathed in confidence enough for 3 men. But now even he looked as if the air had turned sour. "Those are Baratheon colors," Mace said unnecessarily. "Not the ones we had meant to see," said Randyll Tarly from the other side, dry as old wood. Behind them in the column, men shifted and murmured. One horse snorted and stamped. Farther back, under guard and cloth cover, lay the green armor fashioned to mimic Renly's for the day's intended work. Garland Tyrell had been prepared to don it and ride like a ghost at the head of the relieving host, so that Stannis' men might think the dead brother returned to judge them. A clever trick. Perhaps it would have worked against men outside the walls, already frayed by battle. Against men inside the city with the gates shut and a king seated in the Red Keep, it became a costume fit only for mummers. A scout came pounding up the line, horse white with foam. He slid from the saddle and bowed as if the posture might soften the news. "My lords, the city's taken. Mudgate lost in the night. Rivergate too, by report aye. The Red Keep holds the Black Stag. Lannister banners pulled down in the lower wards." Well, Joffrey? Mace asked. "Not seen, my lord. Some say taken. Some say slain. The streets are full of rumor." Tywin's voice entered then, cold enough to still the horse nearest him. "And Tommen? Still at Rosby by all word, my lord." That mattered. One grandson lost to capture or death was catastrophe enough. One grandson free remained a claim, however tainted, however imperiled. Tywin's mind moved behind his eyes with the clean, merciless speed that had broken so many lesser houses. If Joffrey were captive, Stannis would use him. If dead, Tommen must be raised higher and faster. If Myrcella remained in Dorne, another piece survived the board. The game had altered, not ended. He looked again at the city. The walls were manned. Not thickly yet, but visibly. Men in black and gold paced the battlements where panic might have been expected had the taking been fresh and fragile. That meant Stannis had imposed discipline quickly. The harbor still burned in part, yet enough of the river lane near the south bank remained navigable for skiffs and smaller craft. Any immediate assault would require either storming prepared walls, with men exhausted by forced march, or encamping to begin siege works beneath a city now hostile and a bay not in their command. Mace Tyrell licked his lips. "We might still strike, at once before he settles." Randyll Tarly's gaze remained on the walls. "With tired men, uncertain entry, and the river against us, you'd spend Reach blood dearly for the chance to die where the gate should have opened." Me. Enter Gaul. Mace bristled. "We did not come here to stare." "No," said Tarly. "We came to relieve a city. It has been relieved, just not in the fashion you'd prefer." Tywin ignored them both for a moment and studied the distant rise of Aegon's high hill. From this remove, the Red Keep looked serene, almost untouched, which was the final insult. Cities bled within while their crowns of stone pretended permanence. He had expected to arrive as savior, to ride through open gates with lions and roses, and make himself once more indispensable to the realm's pretense. Instead, he had come as witness. A lesser man would have attacked out of wounded pride. Tywin had built too much to indulge in the luxuries of lesser men. "Signal the column to halt beyond bowshot," he said. Mace turned sharply. "Halt. We do not throw ourselves at walls for Stannis' amusement. And Joffrey? If he lives, Stannis needs him alive." Tywin's mouth might have been carved from the same stone as Casterly Rock. "If he does not live, then we have lost nothing by not burying 10,000 men beneath his empty name." Some of the nearby captains pretended not to hear that. Sensible of them. Tarly said, "If we camp here, we invite sorties. If we withdraw at once, we proclaim weakness," Mace objected. Tywin's gaze shifted to the Lord of Highgarden and stayed there long enough to make the man remember whose son had married whose empty prospect, and how quickly bargains soured when crowns changed heads. "We will not withdraw in flight," Tywin said. "We will take measure, secure Rosby, secure Tommen, and determine what allies remain allies when they are asked to bleed for a lost boy. That is what we will do. There was silence after that because no one near Tywin ever rushed to fill silence. It was too often a pit with stakes at the bottom. He looked once more at the stag banners above the walls. The sight stirred no grief in him, only calculation and a colder thing beneath it. Stannis had done what few men expected and fewer still could forgive. He had won cleanly enough to make law dangerous again. Good, Tywin thought with a savage inward calm. Let the realm see what law tastes like. Men grow hungry for other flavors soon enough. He raised one gauntleted hand. Trumpets sounded the order. The host began to wheel, not en route but in a long, controlled bending away from the city that should have greeted them with opened arms, and instead watched them from conquered walls. As the column turned, a morning breeze carried the faint toll of one last bell from King's Landing. It did not sound like victory. Davos Seaworth returned to the Red Keep after sunrise with smoke in his hair and death at his back. Saladhor Saan's men had found him clinging to a broken spar among the floating ruins below the city, half senseless and burned on one forearm where wildfire heated water had kissed him. A fisherman's skiff might have taken him first. Davos never learned. He remembered only hands dragging him over a gunwale, a Lyseni voice cursing all Westerosi kings in melodious profanity, and waking later under coarse sailcloth, while the city above the harbor roared itself towards some conclusion he could not witness. By the time he could stand, the black stag flew over the quay. He came up through streets that no longer belonged to the Lions, and had not yet learned what belonging to Stannis would mean. Men were already sweeping corpses into rows where they could, separating friend from foe when armor or banner allowed, and giving up when fire had made heraldry a lie. Women peered from doorways. Children darted to stare and were yanked back by anxious hands. In one square, a looter still hung from a lantern post, face purple and swollen, and the sight of it told Davos more about the new order than 100 proclamations could have done. At the gate of the Red Keep, guards challenged him until one recognized him, and blanched as if seeing a drowned man upright. Sir Davos. He almost laughed at that. The honorific had outlived too many of the men who'd first begrudged it him. Is the king within? He is. Davos climbed the hill slowly. Every step jarred bruises into speech. He thought of Mathos with each one. Thought of the South Tower leaping into flame. Thought of the moment he had seen the chain cripple, and known his son had bought that opening with blood or courage or both. He did not know if Mathos lived. He feared he did know, and only refused to place the knowledge where it could hurt properly. The throne room doors stood open. Inside, the hall had emptied of most of its frightened nobility, and become once again what halls of power most often were, a place for labor. Scribes bent over desks. Captains came and went with stained bandages and lists in hand. Ravens muttered in wicker cages awaiting messages for every corner of the realm. The high windows were open to let out some of the smoke, and pale morning washed the edges of everything without making any of it gentler. Stannis stood before the Iron Throne rather than on it, one hand braced against an armrest of twisted blades. He looked as if the night had cut pieces from him and left the rest sharper. The glove on his left hand was off. A strip of linen had been bound around the palm where the throne had bitten him. He saw Davos at once. For a moment, neither spoke. Around them, the room continued its work in hushed currents. Davos was suddenly acutely aware of the soot on his face, the river stink on his clothes, the ache in his chest when he drew full breath. Then Stannis said, "You were right." No flourish. No public praise shaped for other ears. Merely the truth lay down between them, plain and heavy. Davos bowed his head. "The chain, Your Grace. The chain. The tower. The gap." Stannis' eyes, weary and pale, did not leave his. "Without it, the river traps us. The gate holds. Tywin arrives to find me bloodied beneath the walls instead of seated in my hall. You saw what Florent did not." Davos thought of telling the king that Sir Imry had seen it too late and died for his lateness. But death was punishment enough, and dead men did not grow wiser by being named fools. Instead, he said, Mathos took the tower. A shadow crossed Stannis' face. It was not pity. Stannis was too lean a vessel for much pity, but there was a hard regard in him that could pass close enough to it for men like Davos. He did, the king said. The words were answer enough. Davos closed his eyes once. When he opened them, the throne room had gone strangely sharp around the edges, as if grief cleared vision by flaying it. "My son?" he asked, though he already knew. "He died where brave men die," Stannis said. "In work that mattered." There was some comfort in that, and none at all. Davos swallowed. He had sons left, one at least on Dragonstone, perhaps another if the river had spared more than he deserved. A smuggler learned it early that the sea took what it liked and made no bargains. Yet, fathers kept bargaining anyway. "I'll have the names of all the dead," Stannis said. "All of them. Lords, captains, oarsmen, boys. They will not be left to rot unnamed because kings prefer easier reckonings." Davos bowed again because speech had become uncertain ground. Stannis turned away and looked up toward the throne. "The city's ours." Tywin came and went. Tommen is at Rosby. Myrcella in Dorne. Joffrey in chains. Murmur, Dewa. Davos let out a breath that felt like a year. "Then you have done it." "No?" Stannis' mouth twisted. "I have begun it." That was the king entire, Davos thought. Victory seated less lightly on him than fear sat on most men. Where others would have taken the city as climax, Stannis received it as burden. Perhaps that was why he had won it. Desire made sloppy conquerors. Duty made narrow ones, but sometimes narrow was what a gate required. A captain approached with fresh parchment. "Your Grace, messages for Storm's End, Dragonstone, Gulltown, Maidenpool, and Duskendale are ready. Shall I send also to Riverrun?" Stannis held out his bandaged hand for the parchment, scanned it, and gave it back. "Send, and to Winterfell if a raven can make the distance. The realm will hear my claim from my hand, not from frightened mouths in taverns." The captain bowed and went. Davos said quietly, "You'll send to Lord Stark's son. I'll send to every man who has shed blood while Lannister sat my brother's seat," Stannis said. "Robb Stark may call himself king if he likes. He will now do it knowing the lawful king is not a starving claimant on a rock, but the master of King's Landing." "My D1." There was no boast in the words. Stannis never boasted. He only arranged facts into commands. From somewhere high in the keep came the beat of wings. The first ravens had been released. Davos crossed to the window and watched them fling themselves into the pale east, black shapes on brightening sky. Below, King's Landing smoked and muttered and endured. The bay beyond was a graveyard of charred hulls. Men in boats moved among them still, calling for survivors or finding only the dead. "How many?" Davos asked without turning. "Too many," Stannis said. "Not enough." Davos smiled despite himself, because that too was the king. Grief entered Stannis by the door of numbers. Affection entered, when it did, disguised as precision. For one dangerous moment, Davos felt something close to warmth toward the man, and that was always perilous, because Stannis Baratheon could seldom repay warmth in the coin men expected. Yet he paid in harder metal, and harder metal endured storms. He turned back and found the king watching the empty throne room around them. "What will you do with the queen?" Davos asked. "Keep her alive," Stannis said. "Alive, guarded, and useful. She breeds trouble as a marsh breeds insects, but dead she becomes simpler than she deserves. And the boy? The same, until the realm has looked upon him in chains and understood what was done to it. There was justice in that. There was theater too, though Stannis would never have named it so." Davos wondered if the king knew how much more terrible he seemed for refusing to ornament his own wrath. A silence fell then, not uncomfortable. The room had thinned further. Scribes moved like quiet ghosts. Beyond the open windows, the last of the bells had stopped. The city sounded strange without them. as though some ceaseless argument had finally been exhausted. Stannis walked up the steps once more and turned before the Iron Throne. For a heartbeat, Davos saw him not as king or lord or claimant, not as the stern master who had knighthooded a smuggler for onions and cut his fingers for old crimes, but simply as a man who had spent his whole life standing second to louder loves and easier lies, and now found the seat he had demanded beneath him sharp, unwelcome, and entirely real. He sat. The blades did not spare him. Davos saw them in it tightening at the corners of his eyes, the slight correction of posture, the acceptance. Stannis settled into pain as if it were one more duty among many, and perhaps the only honest cushion ever offered to kings. Outside, another flight of ravens rose from the towers and wheeled east and north and south, carrying the news of a changed realm on black wings. Davos bowed low. When he straightened, the king of Westeros sat above him in a hall, smelling of smoke and parchment and blood. With no music, no cheering, and no illusion left between the man and the crown. That was how Stannis Baratheon won King's Landing. Not with glory, but with iron, and fire endured, and the refusal to stop when lesser men would have called the night finished. The city below had a new master now, and he had come not to be loved, but to rule.